changers and future legacy changers. It's your favorite financial coach, Coach Dion from Legacy Changers Academy. And we are back with another episode of the podcast with Couch Conversations with Coach D. And we have a very special guest with us today. I am so excited to introduce you all to her. I had the opportunity to meet her early this year, and she is such a sweetheart and agreed to do this podcast. So I'm super excited, and I hope you all are excited as well. She is a mother, entrepreneur, CEO, public speaker, author, and veteran finance expert at the helm of award-winning financial education company, Finances Demystified. She is a money maven, teaching people, especially women, how to manage their personal finances, grow their wealth, and use those dollars to bring their dreams to reality. She has been named the top money expert by Go Banking Rates, named one of the top financial advisors in the United States for millennials, top 30 under 30 in Washington, D.C., has taught more than 10,000 students how to invest and create generational wealth. She is known to be and is edgy and engaging. She gives financial advice that has been highlighted on Time, Next Advisor, Yahoo, USA Today, and so many other media outlets. Legacy Changers, please help me give a warm welcome to Dominique Broadway to the Legacy Changers podcast.
Yay. Thank you so much
Welcome.
for having me.
How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm in a really, really great space in life right now. So I'm actually excited.
I'm excited that you are here. As I said before, thank you again for agreeing to do this. So,
Thank
we're going to
you.
be talking
It was a
about.
it was a delight to meet you in
I
Louis. So
know. Okay, side note before we get into it, I was so like pleasantly surprised and well pleased by the melanated skin that you had when you came to St. Louis. I was just like, oh my God, she looks like me. She looks like me. Look at the skin. We're all melanated.
It's refreshing, right? To find people that look like me. Especially in this space.
I know, and I love it. I don't know if any of my audience is familiar with you, but I'm sure they'll let me know. But I have followed you for quite a while, especially when I was just starting my own financial journey. I was looking for community of other
Yeah.
people that look like me, whether they were another married couple or just another woman in the space talking about finances. And it seems like it's one of those things that we know we need to talk about, but it feels kind of like a taboo conversation. And so the whole idea behind what I'm doing with this podcast, especially for segments like this, I call it Couch Conversations because I want it to mirror and mimic real life conversations that we have. If we go
Yeah.
to a girlfriend's house or if they come over to our house, we're usually sitting on the couch, sometimes even at the dining room table, and we're talking and we're having these conversations. But sometimes we don't have the financial know-how or financial wisdom to actually put them into action. And so that's what I'm hoping we achieve today. So again, thank you so much for being a part. I want to go ahead and dive in because the episode is about elevating your finances through trading. And so, what we do at the podcast, my little slogan is I shouldn't say little slogan, but my slogan is to help you elevate your faith, your finances, and your future. And I know you have a lot of knowledge and information in this space. I know I read your bio, but I want you, in your own words, to tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been in this like investing world now for about 23 years, which seems like so crazy. When I used to hear people say they like did something for like that long, I'm like, oh my God, you're like so old, right? But I've been in this investing game for about 23 years. I started teaching myself how to invest and then eventually how to trade when I was 16 years old. And really just became almost honestly obsessed with trying to understand how to make my money work for me without me having to physically work. That is like something I'm really, really passionate about. Like, how can I make the most money without having to physically do labor? And I really just realized that that was one of the ways. There was pretty much three ways that like the rich were getting rich, maintaining their wealth and growing their wealth: entrepreneurship, real estate, and the stock market. And I'd already dabbled in entrepreneurship, didn't have enough money to buy a house. So I decided to try out this whole stock market thing. And like I said, just really got kind of obsessed with just trying to understand and seeing my money multiply and work for me without having to physically do work. And yeah, that's kind of like what initially made me excited about this space. I After that, went to Bowie State University, which is an historically Black college in Bowie, Maryland. Started working at UBS Financial Services. And it was funny, I actually originally had applied to work at Morgan Stanley, and I had applied to work at Morgan Stanley because the only other Black woman, which was Carla Harris, that I could find in that space was at Morgan Stanley. So I'd applied at Morgan Stanley, got the internship, and then like 3 or 4 days before I was supposed to go to my internship, Morgan Stanley cut their entire internship program for the entire business, the entire company. For that summer, UBS was like, "Hey, we'll take a couple people in." They interviewed me, they liked me, and that was my first time seeing bank accounts with two commas, and I was like, "Oh, this is next level. You have $20 million in an account or 50." Like that was really cool. Um, got a full time job there, worked there for a while. I had bought my first house before I graduated college, and my friends kept coming to me for financial advice. Like, clearly, Dominique, you know what you're doing. And that's when I started to realize there's this huge gap in information, right? Like, our clients at the firms that we worked at, they were the 1%, right? And we were helping the 1% maintain that level and try to get higher. But everyone that I knew was not in the 1 percentile, and they didn't have anywhere near that type of wealth, and they couldn't become clients there. And so that's when I decided to quit my good job and try to focus on people that maybe like some of your listeners, right? That don't have millions of dollars yet, but if they could get access to the information and the know-how, maybe they too could, eventually reach that millionaire status. So that's a little bit more about me.
Which is amazing. There's so many takeaways, but one thing that I want to talk about in particular, you were
Yeah.
16
Yeah.
when you started this. Okay, when
Mhm.
I was 16, honey, I think I was working at Sears Roebuck, okay? I was not thinking about finances and learning anything about it. And so I have to commend you for that because you are a testament to the fact that the hard work, right, and the consistency behind it can lead you to the path that you want to go on, and you can
Yeah.
start at any age. And
Those jobs though, Dion, just to tell you, those jobs are the jobs that made me realize I needed to figure out another way, right? Like
yeah,
I remember I was working at Macy's, right, which is I guess Sears competitor back in the day.
yeah,
Um,
back in the
I
day.
think I was making like $5.75, and it
Mhm.
blew my mind that they wanted me to wear a suit, and I'm like, how can I afford a suit if I'm making $5.75? Like my mom was buying me the suits just so I could
Yep,
work. And I'm like, this cannot be the end all be all. This cannot be like what life is going to be like forever. So it
yep.
was those jobs that triggered me to be like, something else got to give.
Right, something isn't right. And I think that's amazing though, because again, when we talk about finances, we know that there is a mindset shift that needs to happen. And it was already starting to show up for you at that young age of
Yeah.
16 that carried over into adulthood. I heard you say that before you graduated from college, you had purchased your first home. As a
Mhm.
fellow millennial, and I'm at the top of the millennial chain, I was born in 81. I didn't purchase my first home until I think my husband and I had been married like 2 years, 2.5 years when we purchased our first home. And so many other people were kind of just like, oh my God, like, and we're thinking, like, well, isn't this what you're supposed to do? Right.
Yeah.
But millennials now, right? Like, I work with people, within our generation, and they are still just trying to make those ends meet just to make a dream like that, purchasing a home, become a reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love like you've hit these milestones, but you've also seen both sides of the coin, right? Like you know what it's like to be like, okay, wait a minute, there's something else that needs to happen, but then also being on the other side of the realization and the manifestation of like, okay, hey, I've made it, but let me show you how to as well. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I
Like,
think that's why I feel like exposure is one of the most important things like in life because once you get exposed to something, you can't unsee it. And I think that was um a lot of the reasons why I was always an ambitious kid, but like once I started getting exposed to different things, I'm like, okay, I can't unsee that. Like
mhm,
if that's a
mhm,
possibility, now that's my new bar, right?
yeah,
Why can't I reach this goal and why can't I potentially do it sooner? But like you're saying, it comes down to that mindset. But for me, it's also has been about like almost like hacking life in a way. I think that
Mhm.
we're taught that life has to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it doesn't have to go that way, right? There's a lot of like life hacks that you can put in place to um, do life your own way, right? And I think that that's a lot of the reason why I've been able to accomplish a lot of things a lot quicker, legally and ethically, but still just kind of figuring out what's going to be my quickest solution to reach this stated goal if I don't have to necessarily do it the way that everyone is telling me that that it has to be done.
Right.
So that's like you said, that's another kind of like mindset shift as well, and really just deciding that you want to take control of your own life, your own destiny. You're going to design it to look like whatever you want it to look like, and I know that even when I was younger and even when I quit my job and all the things I was doing, I felt like everyone was constantly saying, "Why are you doing it this way?" or "Why are you doing this?" or "Why are you doing that?" And and now they're like, "Oh my gosh, I see why you did this
Uh-huh.
way." And I don't even know why I was doing things this way, but I just knew that I didn't want that same outcome that you had.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
figure out how to do it differently, and I want to do it in a more strategic and optimized way. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's another thing as well. Yeah,
Yeah. You were being a generational curse breaker without even knowing it.
yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
you was like, "I
for
don't know why
sure,
I'm
for
doing
sure.
like, I don't know why I'm doing this." And I think that's what's amazing, like, when I meet people in, the financial space for the past, I would say 6 years that I've been doing this, I hear that repeated a lot. "I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had to try, something different." And then I'm
No,
thinking to myself, out of all of this financial, information, I previously shared on the podcast that I worked in banking for almost 9 years, and I didn't receive the same information working in the industry that I did after I left, and I'm like, why is no one talking about this? And so again, I have to commend you just for your journey, and the work that you have been doing, especially, again, reaching back and pulling other people
yeah,
with you. That's legacy, building
yeah.
and
And like you
legacy
said, I think
changing.
the conversations, like you mentioned, are just really important, and they're still not being had, which
Yeah.
is frustrating. And I think a lot of times people are like, "Oh, well, you work in a specific industry, you should know these things." I would say some of the most interesting speaking engagements that I've had have been one at Wharton. So I did a talk at Wharton to their about to graduate MBA students about personal finances, and these people had no clue. Wharton,
Wow.
right? I also did a talk to some employees at Bloomberg, no clue, right? And it was just really interesting. Like, they work in these industries, but a lot of people still don't. They're just kind of doing the work, but they don't really understand how the personal finances work. And so that's why, as you're saying, I think these conversations are really important because people also just assume that certain people know certain things. And a lot of times they're like, well, because I went to the school, I need to act like I know. And they have no clue whatsoever. And they're really just doing
Mhm.
themselves a disservice. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, let's talk about something so that we can educate our people and we can have this conversation. In your own words, what is trading?
Yeah, so trading is it's honestly it's simple. It's literally just the exchanging, buying and selling of various financial instruments. So buying something at one price, selling it at another, et cetera, and vice versa. If you're short selling, that's more complicated. But to keep it the most simple way, if you think about trading even back in the day, we would barter, right? So
Mhm.
you may say, "Hey, Dion, you have a horse, and I have a pig. So you want bacon, and I need to ride a horse, whatever. We're going to trade." That's
Mhm.
literally a similar type of concept if you take it back in the day. But nowadays, when people are trading, you may buy a stock. Let's say you buy Apple stock today for $200, and you sell it in a week for $215. That $15 profit in the middle is that $15 in the middle is what we would call the profit. That's the gain or return that you made. But that's essentially what it is: buying something for one price and hoping to sell it for a gain in the very near future or longer time frame.
And I loved how you explained it, right? Because most of the time when people think about investing and trading, they automatically go to risk.
Hmm.
It's like, Yeah, there's some risk to it, but like, let's try to simplify it. Let's make this
Yeah.
as simple and easy, to understand. Because I think simplifying it takes the fear out of it
Yeah.
because now you're saying it in a way that I can understand it. So thank you
Mhm.
so much for giving that example. So I hope legacy changes. I hope y'all are tuning in and y'all listening. When we talk about starting in
Mhm.
trading, right? Even if you simplify that process, what are some simple steps to get started?
Yeah. So obviously, from a personal financial standpoint, you want to make sure that you got your personal finances together. I always say no one should really be trading if they don't have at least 3 months, at least 6 months,
Mhm.
ideally emergency cash reserves, but at least 3 months.
Yep.
If whatever you are trading with, just before we get into the basics, make sure it's not your rent money, your car note, your mortgage, any of those things. Only trade
Mhm.
money, trade with money, or even invest money that you are comfortable with potentially losing. That's
Yep.
very, very, very important because all trades may not go the way that you want them to go. Okay. Which is why we do practice risk management. We'll talk about that in a second. But one of the first steps is definitely just to open the account. So you want to make sure that you're opening an account that allows you to trade.
Mhm.
And allows you to trade the specific type of financial instruments that you want to trade. So there's so many different types of things that you can trade. One of the things I trade most frequently would be stocks and options. There's a lot of other things you can trade, futures, crypto, all these different things. We don't need to go down all those rabbit holes because I will lose y'all. But let's just focus on stocks and on options. So you want to make sure that you pick an account, like I said, that will allow you to trade options, allow you to trade stocks. And I say that because sometimes people will open up certain accounts, which are great. But they may only allow you to have ETFs. They may only allow you to have mutual funds, et cetera, et cetera. You may not have the ability to actually purchase individual stocks or have the ability to have option trading if you want to trade options. So that's the first thing. Find the account, find the brokerage that has the financial instruments that you want, open up the account, put some money in there. Boom.
Mhm.
That's literally how you start. Okay. After that, I always tell people who are new to then make a watch list. And a watch list is literally just a list of different companies that you maybe like or love or use or just admire, or that you would like to potentially invest in or potentially trade. I always tell people to start with 5 to 7 stocks on the list. And don't like try to add every company you've ever used in your entire life because it can get very overwhelming. But start with those 5 to 7 stocks and just start kind of monitoring and looking at them. And I always tell people maybe look at them for like a week and just see how they move. It's really a great activity because you start to get really in tune with the markets in this way, right? You'll start to hear little things about Apple. You'll start to see little things about Nvidia. You'll just start to
Mhm.
hear things about it and then see how the stock reacts. I think it's such a great activity. So if someone says, "Oh, yesterday or a couple days ago, Apple is on track to hit a $4 trillion market cap." Well, what does that mean? In
Mhm.
order for a stock for its market cap to go up, that means that the stock's price has to go up, right? So if they're saying that it's headed to a $4 trillion market cap, that means that Apple's stock is predicted to what? Rise, to
Right.
increase, right? So then you'll see, oh wow, how did Apple's react to that news? Wow, I looked at Apple, they're up $3 today,
Mhm.
right? Based on that news. Okay, now I can see how certain news and certain announcements move the market, right? So that's one thing that you can start doing is just start monitoring your watch list and checking it out and seeing how it moves throughout the week. Because once you get in tune with the stock, it makes it a lot easier to actually trade it. I have a list of probably about 12 stocks that I trade most consistently. I probably trade about 5 of them every single week. Like get in and out, 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 and making, tons of money that way. So that is where I would start right there.
I love that. And I hope y'all are listening.
Mhm.
One thing that I often advise people to take a
Mhm.
look at and something that you mentioned, what are you using? Um, People tend to overthink about
Yep.
what they can invest in. So I love that you said, "Hey, make a list of 5 to 7 things." And I tell people, "Well, where do you shop the most
Mm.
often? What are the
Yep.
brands that you buy the most? What are the things that you know people, including yourself, are always going to need?"
Yep.
Start there. I have a church friend who years ago invested in stock with Mattel. And he's
Mhm.
like, I have a daughter. That's all she plays with is Barbies. And I'm like, that's where you start. Look
Yeah.
around your home. What are the things that you are buying the most of and why? And that's a great place to start because even as a consumer, you're still also an investor, right? You own stock in that company
Yep.
now, right? So you know whether or not, well, not really know for sure, but there's a higher chance if you're constantly going back and I'm just, randomly throwing out brands. If you know that Bounty, paper towels are your favorite brand, look at what happened during the pandemic. What were we missing?
We were talking about
Right? Right?
papers.
Right? So it's like I love how you just said, "Hey, just spend a week watching it." And it's also part of doing your research. I love
Yep.
that you also touched on the fact, "Hey, you need to have your personal finances in order." I'm
Mhm.
a big advocate for that. Like, when I sit down with my clients, I'm like, there's no need for us to talk about investing if you're not even paying your bills on time.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need to talk about you having a 3 to 6 month emergency fund if you are not even paying your primary essentials on time. Do you have
Yeah.
working water in your house? Do you have a roof over your head? Is there food on your table? Do you have clothes on your back? Right?
Mhm.
So I love the fact that you touched on that as like one of the simple ways to start, 'cause you gotta make sure that your household is taken care of first. So, um, I would
Yeah.
say my next follow-up question, you kinda touched on this. How does trading compare with other investing strategies?
Yeah, so I think one more thing I wanna add
Okay.
to, and you may get to this later, but I just want to make sure I add it really quickly about just like the risk management. So even really quick, once you put some money in your account and you do start to look for trade opportunities, one of my favorite kind of tactics to make sure that you don't lose your money, and I think that people don't talk about this enough, is what I call the 5%, or if you're more aggressive, the 10% rule. So basically,
Okay.
making sure that you're not investing or trading with more than 5 to 10% of the available capital that's in your account
That's good.
per trade. That really helps you to make sure that you don't blow your account. Because I've seen people like, oh my gosh, I had $1,000 in there and I've spent $995 on a trade and I lost that trade and now I have $5. I'm like, that should not be happening. There's no reason
Right.
whatsoever that you should be taking all the money that's in there and putting it into one single trade.
Mhm.
And I think it's important, especially as traders, to be consistent, right? So let's say when I started trading, I just set a goal where, hey, I was young. 50, if this thing can just make me $50 a day, that would be great. Then eventually $100 a day, then 200, and then 1,000, and then 5 and 10,000 is the daily goal, whatever it may be. You can kind of grow over time, but don't feel like you need to just, I need to make $1 million today in the market. No, if you
Right.
can make 75, 50, $100 a day by trading, that's great, right?
Yeah.
$100 a day, 5 days, that's $500 a week. For a lot of people, it takes them a long time to make $500, right? So I think that if you break it down that way, it can be something that's more consistent for you instead of a bunch of uh, wins that may
Right.
not be sustainable over time. So that's another thing that's really important. Um, Going back to your question, which was, oh, how does trading
Yeah.
compare to other investing? Yeah, so I guess really quickly, I'll hit on the difference between investing and trading, right? So
Mhm.
as I mentioned, when you're trading, you're buying and selling, it's buying and selling various financial instruments, right? And you understand that with trading, your goal is to make income every day, every week, every month. You understand that, right? There's sometimes where I'll do a day trade, meaning I'll get in and out of a trade in the same day. I got in and out of a trade this morning. I was in there for 5 minutes, made a couple $1,000, got out, right? Because I needed to go get into meetings. I don't like to trade when
I
I'm in
got
meetings.
today.
So, so yeah, that, but you understand that, hey, the goal is I'm
Mhm.
gonna get in and out in the same day. We also have like swing trading where, hey, like I'm putting in some orders today and then I'm gonna get out tomorrow, right? So you understand that you're trying to make returns in a quicker time frame.
Mhm.
When you're investing, you understand that you may not make a return today, you may not make a return tomorrow, but at some point in the future, you're going to get some sort of additional income or profit, right? And that is really the difference between the two, right? So, like I said, if I'm getting into a trade today, this morning, and I'm like, hey, my goal is to get in and out based on this quick run up, and that's it. Versus I have longer term portfolios where the money is just sitting in there. I'm not even looking at it. I'm not tapping into it. I'm letting it grow
Yeah.
over time. So that is really the difference between the two. And so that's why I always like to ask people, well, what is your goal, right? What is the goal for the money that you are looking to do something with? And a lot of times people feel like they have to pick between the two, and you don't. You don't have to pick between investing and trading. I personally do both. I have
Mhm.
long term portfolios that are growing. I have investments in public companies. I'm an angel investor, so I invest in private companies as well. And I understand that I'm going to see nice returns, but it may be a year, it may be a couple years before I get to see those large jumps. And then I understand that, hey, I also would like to make money throughout the week as well, and I like to do use trading for that. So I think that's one of the things that you kind of want to think about. And then also, like, what's your personality, right? That's another big thing that people don't.
Yeah.
What's your personality? Like, if you are bad with self-control, discipline, greed, don't trade.
Consistency. Yeah.
Consistency, don't trade, because the market, the one thing about the stock market, and I love me some stock market, but it is going to expose everything your therapist has not healed yet within you. Okay. If you have greed, it will come and just beat your little butt right on up. If you
Mhm.
are can't be consistent, you're gonna end up broke. If you greedy, you'll end up broke. If you can't practice self-control, you're gonna end up broke. So that's another thing where I'm like, trading ain't for everyone. It's
It's
not.
yeah.
It's not. It is not for everyone. If you feel like you can't handle those things, just stick to investing. There is
Mhm.
nothing wrong with the little, I call it lazy investing, vanilla investing. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. If you like, hey,
Amazing
I'm
vanilla.
vanilla, baby, cool. Dollar cost average. Put some money, pick a stock,
I
put
love
a
it.
hundred in every month and let it ride. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they're going to be way more successful at investing than
Mhm.
trading, because most people on this earth cannot manage their emotions well, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to trading, you have to remove the emotions.
Mhm.
So if you go into the market desperate and broke, you're coming into it that way, and your action is gonna reflect that, right? If you're coming in like, "Ooh, I gotta pay my rent. I need rent money." It's like going to the casino. You go in desperate, the
Mhm.
casino can smell that a mile away. You gonna walk out probably way less than what you came in with. So I think that's another thing that people don't understand, and they're like, it's interesting. Some of the most successful people in our trading courses are women over 55.
Okay.
Interesting. It's so,
Mhm.
and like, we definitely have a lot like younger that are
Yeah. Yeah.
successful. The ones that are younger that are super successful, they typically may have been in the military or maybe even teachers. They're just patient. They're
Yeah.
patient, you
Yeah.
know? And then that like over 55 crowd who may be retired or just have extra time on their hands. They not trying to get rich quick today. They all do, they do the best. They're the ones bringing in 10, 20K a month trading. And then you got the other young people who just like, I'm trying to get rich tomorrow. They don't do as well.
Mm.
So it's been that's been really interesting to see. So that's like, I love this trading world, but I am equally as in love with investing as well. And I think that sometimes people get so caught up in the excitement and the hype of trading,
Mhm.
um, that they don't invest. And it would be a much better use of their money by just picking 3 to 5 companies you like, uh taking a dollar amount, if it's $500 a month, putting $100 into each one, setting it automatically to happen as a recurring investment and not thinking about it. For most
Okay.
people, that actually might be the better solution for them. So just wanted to
Mhm.
highlight that as well. So, because I don't like people losing money. So,
No, and people don't like losing money, right? And but I think it's so true when you say you need to know your personality,
Mhm.
and what's gonna work for you. Something that I heard to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying is that the accumulation of money or money itself reveals who you really are. You don't change just because you got money. It reveals who you naturally are. And that's whether you acquire it legally or illegally. Do what you
Yeah.
do. But it already exposes what's there. And I love how you said, listen, that money is going to reveal all that unhealed trauma that you're there.
Yes. And even the
It's not
attempts
going to
at
help.
getting the money can
Mhm.
reveal. those traumas. And I've seen a lot of people make a lot of money and then lose a lot of money.
Yep.
And it's sad to see. It really is. And that whole more money, more problems. Like I remember we was all singing that and rapping that song when we was younger. We didn't know what it meant. But let me tell you something. I remember even after my first time like hitting millionaire status, and it was just like, oh, this is different. Like
Mhm.
people treat you differently. Everybody's trying to get certain things. So I think that that's the other thing, like you're saying, like it doesn't matter how much you make, because if you can't manage what you currently have,
Yeah.
um 10xing it is not going to make it better. I've seen people that you know went from making 100,000 a year to 1 million a year and literally got $2 in their name right now,
Mhm.
just because they thought that getting to certain amounts would like make it better for them. But if you can't manage it, you can't manage it. And so,
Yeah.
but going back to the trading thing, like we're saying, the markets, I'm trying to remember the book. It's a book that we have our students read, and for some reason, the name of the book is escaping me. But it basically just talks about like the patient self control and discipline that you have to have
Mm.
to really be in the markets consistently. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that the markets are a great place to build wealth. Also, real estate is great. And that's another thing too. I think people don't realize there's so many different things that you can invest in. And I'm sure you talk about this, but from yes, you have your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds, your ETFs, which you can all invest in. You can invest into real estate, you can invest into wine, whiskey, land.
Yep.
Uh, you can invest into, public companies, private companies. There's so many different ways that you can make money. And I think that that also comes back to what you're saying is the conversations
Mhm.
and exposing yourself to um, all the ways that we can start to create more income for ourselves and to create more wealth for ourselves as well.
Yeah. And I love the fact that there's no one trick pony and there's no path that just works for everybody, right? Like, even for myself, my husband, our journey to debt freedom was very different than our clients that we coach. I like to meet people where they are, and I'm like, okay, if you're not comfortable with this, and this, we can get you to where you want to go, but here's a path that you might, want to take and consider. It just depends on how fast you want to get there. But then also, too, again, knowing yourself, knowing your personality. Um, some people may not like real estate investment, right? They may not like trading. They may not like the stocks, but there's something out there for everyone. So I don't want to say that you don't have an excuse, but do your research and select a path that's going to work for you. And also,
No,
don't be
you
afraid
don't
to
have
try.
any excuse. You don't have any excuse. You
Look, I'm
really
trying to be nice
don't.
to y'all. Dominic's like,
No,
no.
like in this day and age, you do not have an excuse. When I was 16, back in my day, we ain't had no Google, we ain't had no YouTube. I had to go to the library, read
Come
magazines.
on, tell the
So
truth.
that learning curve took so much longer. You know what I'm saying? When you gotta
It
figure it out
did.
on your
It
own.
did.
And I feel like literally now there is no excuse unless you physically are unable to do whatever. If medical conditions aside, I think that people are procrastinating. People are wasting time. Time is not on our side, and you need to take action. And everyone wants to be rich tomorrow, but you didn't do anything last week that would get you even closer to that goal.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like there aren't any excuses, because there's podcasts, there's courses, there's Google, there's Chat GPT. Any question you have right now, you can type it somewhere and you are going to get a educated, almost verified by some source answer.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, as you mentioned and how you started this conversation off, it's mindset. For
Absolutely.
most people, it's very, very difficult for them to think that way. And I remember when I was broke, if you come to me talking about some building, well, girl, get out of here. I'm trying to pay my rent. Okay.
That
So if
part.
you are in survival mode, it's very, very hard to have that conversation.
Exactly. And that's what
Right.
I'm saying, like, I don't wanna tell people, like, you don't have an excuse. Listen, Dominique said y'all ain't got no excuse, period,
You don't
okay?
have an excuse, because if you
Um,
also you gotta figure out how to get that rent, because this look,
yeah.
come on, it come down to the decisions. Like, right, okay, you got the book. I'm telling you, like, when I tell you, and even you, I hope you read a little bit of the book, but even when I started my book off with a journal entry of me being broke. And I
Wow.
literally made a decision. I was like, this ain't gonna be my story. Like, I am done with
Yeah.
this. I think that one of the things that we don't realize is the power of our minds and the power that we all have within us. We literally have the power to create any type of life that we want for ourselves. If your goal is to make 100,000 a year, you're going to make 100,000 a year. If I set a goal to make $1 million in a month, I made $1 million in a month. I have that power, right? And so I think
Mhm.
that a lot of times we're not speaking into ourselves as powerfully as we could be, basically. Like,
Mhm.
we all have the ability to turn our situations around, right? If you if the solution is, "Oh, I need to figure out how to make more money." There's so many more ways to make money now than it's ever been, right? If
Mhm.
that's Uber or DoorDash, or I saw some girl on Instagram of the day selling some socks, okay? She just wear the socks all day and then ship them all. Girls making like $10,000 a month. Now, I'm not saying you got to sell your socks, but I'm like, we are in this is a different world that
It
we're in
is.
right now.
It
And
is.
no one, there's never money has never been as easily made than in this time frame, in this current
Okay.
era we are living in. It's
Mhm.
never been as easy as it is now to click some buttons on your phone and make money. It goes back to, like, we're talking about exposure, right?
Right.
It goes back to exposure. It goes back to all of us saying, this isn't going to be my story. What can I do to
Mhm.
change this
Mhm.
within my own power and ability? And I think that also, like, the other issue too is, as especially as African Americans, we're not taught that we have all this power that God has actually given us. And
Yeah.
if we can speak better over ourselves, and if we surround ourselves with people that are constantly pouring into us and we're pouring into others, the possibilities are truly limitless and endless.
Mhm.
And that's what I hope that people can really sit down and understand. And yes, this investing and trading, this is great. But at the end of the day, you have to believe in yourself. And we can sit here all day, just speak until we blue in the face about what to do. But if
Yeah.
you feel in your heart of hearts that you will never be wealthy and that you don't deserve wealth and you don't deserve more income, you're never going to get it.
That's gonna be
The
your it's self-fulfilling prophecy. That's
Look,
gonna be your reality.
Leon and Dominique can come to your house right now and walk you step by step, and you still won't do it if you don't believe that this is something that you deserve and
Mhm.
something that you can do. You won't do it. So
Right.
that's why I go back to that mindset thing, as you mentioned in the
Mhm.
beginning,
Mhm.
is honestly the most important piece to this whole thing, and making wealthy decisions honestly every day. Because
Yes.
if you're not making wealthy decisions every day, then you're making broke decisions.
Yeah.
And those broke decisions keep you in a broke space. But I know even on your debt free journey, you were making decisions every day that was going to get you closer to that
Every
debt free goal. If you
every day.
continue to spend or accumulate debt, it would have got you deeper into it. But you had decided, nah, we getting out of this so that we can
Mhm.
continue to grow. That was a decision you made. And
Absolutely.
you deciding, you know what I mean? So the mindset thing is, I'm like, if I could just put everyone in a room and like hypnotize them and like, no, you deserve more. So yeah.
But
Oh,
no,
that's
facts. No, we're all the people. Everybody come to the front, okay? Everybody come to the front. Because no, really it is, and I mean, whether you decide to trade, invest, whether you decide that you're gonna go on the path of getting your finances in order, paying off your debt, building wealth, it is a decision.
Yeah.
And too often we think that when we see someone else, whether they look like us or not, achieve really what we desire, some way, somehow, sometimes we think that it's not possible for
So you're
us.
like, "Oh, that's just for them. That would never
Right.
happen to me."
Rather than thinking, "Oh, no, I can do this too." I shared
Mhm.
with you earlier, I started following your journey because I was in my journey, and I'm like, "I need some inspiration. I need" you were my community whether you knew it or not. We just met each other this year, but you were a part of my community, and a
I
list of
love
other
that.
people that look like us were a
Yeah.
part. Y'all were my friends in my head,
I
okay?
love it. I love
And
it.
and it's like you have to shift your mind because money is behavioral. Money is behavioral. It exposes who you already are. It decides what you're going to do. It decides where you're going to live. It decides what school your children are going to end up going to, what neighborhood you're going to live
True.
in, what job you have. It decides all those things, but it's about your behavior. And as you said, a decision. And I'm glad you brought your book. You see, I got my book. So I want to pivot to the book. Okay. So you just recently released a book entitled The Wealth Decision. And in your book, you have a chapter that is titled Get Your Past Out of Your Future.
Mm,
I want to talk about that chapter because I want to touch on what you listed as the five most common pitfalls.
okay.
So I'm going to list all five and then we'll just kind of go from there. Number one, doing the most. Number two, overanalyzing. Number three, going for instant gratification. Number four, starting but not finishing. Hello. Number
Mhm.
five, avoiding risk. So, my question is, why are these the most common pitfalls and
Yeah.
who are they the most common amongst?
Ooh, unfortunately, I have to say they're probably the most common amongst. Ooh, I would say okay. I can't
You
say
done
all of
already ripped the Band-Aid off,
them.
okay? You already done told the people they ain't got no excuse. So the
No, I
Band-Aid's
would
off.
say it's interesting. I think the overanalyzation, I feel like a lot of times is more common in women.
Ooh, okay, that's
Because
a good
women are
one.
typically overanalyzers. That's why I'm like, all
Mhm.
of these don't apply to everyone. The instant gratification and the doing the most a lot of times are men. Not all the time, but I
Okay.
feel like it's more common. I think a lot of times men are, they have like their pride, their ego. A lot of times they just want to keep up with everyone else to their own detriment. And I think a lot of times women, we tend to want to do things beautifully and perfect and all those things. And so we will literally overanalyze and do absolutely nothing. So that is who I would say some of those are most common with. As far as the avoiding risk, um, that just kind of depends because some people just have different risk appetite. But I feel like unfortunately a lot of people stay stagnant and never grow because they do avoid risk. You have to take risk to grow, to
Yeah.
wealth. I had to take the risk of quitting my job to create an eight-figure business. So I left my six-figure job and lost my six-figure income to
Ooh,
create an eight-figure business. Now, if I had stayed in my six-figure job, I would still have a six-figure
come
income and
on,
make
tell the truth.
have a six-figure net worth. But I had to lose that to create
Mhm.
the eight-figure. And I think that that's where that risk, or people are like, oh my God, I don't want to, oh, I can't lose my $100,000 a year income. But imagine if you lost your $100,000 year income, you started making $100,000 in a couple hours.
Come on.
Instead of 12 months, you can do that in an afternoon. And I think that that's that risk that people are scared to take because what if I lose the 100,000? But what if you start making 10 million a year? Would you risk it?
Well,
Yeah, you were
you
like,
like,
what if it's a
yeah.
possibility? Like,
Right. Fine, yeah.
so because I think my thing is like I can always get another job. Okay.
Come on, tell the
I
truth.
think that with even all of these, it's the overanalyzing, doing the most, all the things. Um, one of my favorite quotes is "Don't fear failure, fear regret." And
Mm,
with all those things that you're talking about, it's failure, right? Well, what if this
yeah.
doesn't? If what if I risk this and I fail, or what if I don't analyze it enough and it didn't pan out, or all those different types of things. And I think that people end up, money aside, I think most people end up uh, in lives that they hate. Actually, I did a poll on Instagram
Ooh.
the other day. It was a quote in my daily gratitude journal. It was talking about enjoying the journey. And I had just
Mhm.
asked, like, are you enjoying the journey? It was really sad to see. It was like, yes, no, not really enjoying it. Most of the people said not really enjoying it. And I
Wow.
was sad. I mean, it actually really touched my heart because it's very true that most people are not happy in their lives. And honestly, it's because of a lot of these things, because they are overanalyzing, because they are doing the most. And because they're doing the most, they literally are unable to reach any extra goals or go further than that, right? Because they are constantly trying to keep up with somebody else who also ain't even happy, you know? So,
Smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. I
lit-
was listening to a sermon yesterday and I'm gonna paraphrase what the minister said, but something along the lines of you are competing with people who are not even happy with where they are.
Literally.
You are aspiring to be like
People
someone
are happy.
who's not even happy where they
Mhm.
are. And it may not necessarily be that they don't appreciate where they are or, or their journey, but money's not going to make them happy. Do you know what I mean? These pictures that they post on Instagram, social media platforms,
They're highlight reels.
yeah, they're highlight reels. It's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
And we're over here shortchanging ourselves
Wasting
and
our
not
money.
doing the work, right? Moving out of fear, like you said, over analyzing, doing the most, but yet doing the most, but yet starting and not finishing, right? Like how does 1 and 4 even? But it's still a pitfall. We start and then we don't finish. And listen, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, Dominique, no. But it's real. And the
Yeah.
thing that I tell people all the time is that your financial journey is not this. It's
Mm-mm.
not linear. It is this.
This.
It's you just
This.
it's
Yes.
everywhere because you can't predict what's going to happen in the economy and the market, right? You can't predict, whether or not you're even going to be able to have that job.
Yep. Yep.
For me, my journey is very similar to yours. And we talked about this. God was like, okay, it's time for you to step away from your job. And I'm thinking, to do what?
Do
Like, what
what?
are you doing? Oh my God. If I had the pen to my story, we wouldn't be sitting here and having this conversation, not necessarily about finances, because I wanted to go to law school.
Yep.
I
Yep.
wanted to do something completely different. But God
Yeah.
said, no, this is what I've called you to do, what I've ordained you to do. And it's interesting. And I'm kind of going back here just a little bit. When you were talking about your journey, about like starting at 16, before we even knew what financial freedom was, God was still covering us through every
Yeah.
mistake,
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
every payday loan that we had to use,
Yes.
every overage in the bank account, every interest fee that we had to pay, every late payment on a bill, like just all of these different things. And it wasn't until we got to just the journey of paying off debt, which was not a hard feat at all. Then we started to realize, like, oh, wait a minute, God, like you covered me for this. I made the
Yes.
same mistakes that somebody else made and did not recover from, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we talk about the consistency, the mindset, the discipline, all of it, you basically in this book, and I recommend everyone go and get a copy of this book. You broke down, if people just read chapter 3 alone, if you just read chapter 3 alone, okay, get your past out of your future. It's gonna help somebody because
Yeah.
we can't move forward. Or what was the saying? You can't drive your car looking in the rearview mirror,
You crash. You gonna hit something.
right? Like, where you going? And so I know we got to wrap it up here in a second, but no, I appreciate you just breaking everything down and making it simple, and taking the time to educate all of us on what trading actually is, but even more so, sharing your journey. I heard you say, look, listen, you left the 100,000 or six-figure salary to gain 8 figures. It's possible. You are living proof of it. It is not something that has to live in our minds and our imagination only. You can manifest it. And I'm not saying it because I know people misuse the word manifest, but there's work that has to be done, right? You can
Yeah.
educate yourself, you can do your research. I tell people all the time.
It's literally just energy, and like
Yeah.
I said, you choose every day where you're gonna put your energy. You can
Yep.
put your energy towards eating healthier or not. You can choose to put your energy towards being a better mom or not, being a better partner or not. It's
Hmm.
literally about how you choose your energy, and I think unfortunately most people are just putting their energy into the wrong places. So if you don't
Yeah.
want to use the word manifest, but think about it, if most people sit and look at where they put their energy over the last week, 9 times out of 10, most of the things that they've been doing aren't getting them any closer to any of the goals that they want.
At
And
all.
that's when you literally be like, "Okay, I'm complaining about the fact that I don't have any money, but have I done anything in the last 7 days to make it?" No. So what
Eh,
the hell? Why are you expecting some money today if you ain't done nothing to make the money? Like what make it make sense, right? It's literally like if you be like, yo, I wanna get some food from Uber Eats, but oh my God, I just realized I never put the order in. Well, of course, Uber Eats ain't gonna show up at your house because you didn't put the order in. It's the same
mhm.
energy. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. The same energy it takes to open up this phone, put my Uber Eats order in is the same energy that it takes to
Yeah.
use energy and make money. It's all the same thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a 1% change is better than 0%.
Yep.
Even if it's just a little bit
Yeah.
every day. You need to do something every single day to do it. To
Yep.
get whatever the goal is, right? And we can, deviate from finances, any financial goal that you have.
Any goal. You
Any goal,
trying to get some
that you have.
abs. If you
Yeah.
look, I'm like,
Girl,
my goal is
listen,
abs right. I'm in a 30-day ab challenge. So every day I'm doing my little 15-minute ab workout. And I'm
get
like,
it,
it's only
girl.
15 minutes and I'm noticing some changes. Okay. But it's
Come
small
on.
increments every day.
But they coming. The changes are coming, right?
They
I'm
coming.
on
They'll be
team
here by
unbig my
next
back.
summer.
Listen, I gave myself 6 months. I'm on team unbig my back. Okay, we
There you
doing
go,
it,
girl.
by December. But again, it's that mindset. Do you believe that you're worthy of it? Do you believe that you can do it? And I'm gonna leave on this, and I'll let you close out as well.
Okay.
But we don't have to make every journey so difficult and
No,
struggle our way through everything. There are ways to simplify it. There are starting points. We don't start at the finish line,
no.
right? So education is something that no one can ever take away from you. No one can ever take your knowledge away from you. But you can take away from yourself the lack of application and seeing it come through. Seeing it come
Very
through. That's all we saying, folks. That's all we saying. That's it. Make the wealth decision. So close out. Let everybody know where they can find you, where they can keep up with you, where they can get your book, and get in touch with you.
Yes. So you can definitely find me. Website is financesdemystified.com. I'm on Instagram at Dominique Brownie. My daughter's trying to come in here and get on the interview, obviously. But make sure you go grab the book, The Wealth Decision. It's everywhere that books are sold, Audible, all the places. But yeah, that's pretty much where to find me.
All right. Dominique, thank you so much for being our guest today. Legacy Changers, I will make sure that I put all of her information in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll also be in the description box. And we will see you all in the next episode. Love y'all. Bye.